My apologies for the little technical detail interruption over there. So I'm just going to start again. We're going into Kapitel Chaf Aleph, and what I was saying was that this Kapitel is a very good illustration of a problem that Mrs. Eiserman brought up, which is that sometimes you have a Kapitel in Tehillim where you want to sit down and you want to say Tehillim. You're being mispal for a chayla. You're being mispal for whatever tzara. And you have a Kapitel that speaks to a historical happening in David HaMelech's life. And of course, the Kapitel is a beautiful Kapitel, and there's a lot to learn in the Kapitel, but it's difficult sometimes to see how does that Kapitel in Tehillim, how does that serve as a tefillah? In what way are we being mispaled to the Rabbeinu Shalom to help us in that Kapitel? And I think there's two answers. One answer is that every Kapitel of Tehillim teaches us very, very valuable lessons, both in Emunah and B'tachon, and in what our approach to Avodas Hashem should be, and what our relationship with the Rabbeinu Shalom should be. The way what Tehillim does is, Tehillim allows us to analyze our relationship with the Rabbeinu Shalom through the perspective of David HaMelech, and through the perspective of everything that David HaMelech lived through his lifetime. So it's like, I know Reb Ruvain, my Rebbe Reb Ruvain Zalzang Gezund, Reb Ruvain would always talk about shidduchim, and he would talk about a prospective couple going out on a date. And he would say sometimes, a date is not, it's not a very good environment in which to really see if somebody is a suitable partner. Because you go out on a date, and the person on the date is going to be on his or her best behavior. And everything is planned, everything is already worked out beforehand, and the guy already knows, I'm going to this hotel, and the vending machine is over there, and the rules are that I'm supposed to buy her a drink, and it's supposed to be X amount of time, and make sure you do this, and make sure you do that. So everything is planned to the hilt. What's really good is if you're going out on a date and the car is a flat. Now suddenly something is unexpected. Now you get to see how does this person react in a real life situation. Something goes totally awry. Something goes completely not as planned. Now you get to see, is a person patient? Can a person make decisions? Does a person have a temper? Now you really get to learn what is the other person like. In Tehillim, what we get to see is, we get to see David HaMelech's relationship with the Rabbeinu Shalom through thick and thin. You see, how did David HaMelech react when he was going through a tzara? How did David HaMelech react when he was going through a simcha? How did David HaMelech react when Klal Yisrael was struggling? What does David HaMelech? We have a whole Kapitel Kuf Yud Tes, the lengthiest Kapitel in Tehillim. We get to see what David HaMelech's relationship with the Torah HaKadoshah is, and how the Torah HaKadoshah is employed as part of Avodas Hashem. You get to see earlier on in Tehillim, how does David HaMelech react when his own son is rebelling against him? How does he look at something like that? So Tehillim is a training manual in Avodas Hashem. Now, when somebody is going through a tzara, when somebody is going through Nebuch La'aleinu, a tzara, what happened over here? Somebody was there. I let him into the waiting room, wanted to see him. Okay, there he is. Somebody is going through a tzara, and he wants to be mispaled to the Rabbeinu Shalom. But it's not just about being mispaled to the Rabbeinu Shalom. You have to know how to react to the tzara. You have to know, I'm approaching the Rabbeinu Shalom, chas v'chalila, because of a tzara. How do I approach the Rabbeinu Shalom? What should my thought process be? What should I be asking for? What should I not be asking for? So Sefer Tehillim serves not only as a vehicle for a Kapitel like Shir Lamalois Esa Einai Elaharim, when we come and we're mispaled to the Rabbeinu Shalom, I lift my eyes up to heaven, Me'ayin Yova Ezri, and I realize, where does my help come from? And over there, very clearly, we understand how that's a tefillah. Or last week's Kapitel Chaf, Yancha Hashem B'Yom Tzara. So, okay, I'm addressing the Yom Tzara, so I'm coming to the Rabbeinu Shalom, I'm asking for help. But these kapitlach that address different things that happened in David HaMelech's life. That's what teaches us what our relationship should be. And it's only by having a true understanding of what our relationship with the Ribbono Shel Olam should be that we understand how to be mispal to the Ribbono Shel Olam. So that's why Sefer Tehillim is such an important vehicle for tefillah, because even when we don't feel like we're really being mispal, we don't feel that we're in these words that we're beseeching Hashem for help, but what we are doing is we're acknowledging our relationship with the Ribbono Shel Olam. We're gaining a clearer understanding of what our perspective should be on the various things that happen to us throughout our lifetimes. And that's the perspective that we're going to use when we daven Shemona Esrei when we mispal to the Ribbono Shel Olam. So this is why, one of the reasons why Tehillim is just such an important vehicle for tefillah. I always say, we know that the Chazal referred to David HaMelech as the Ne'im Zmirais Yisrael, the beautiful singer of Klal Yisrael. I remember I spoke about this at length in our first shir on Tehillim, in the Hakdama to Sefer Tehillim. David HaMelech is the Ne'im Zmirais Yisrael. He's the one who knows how to train us, how to turn our lives into shira. Our life, every moment of our life is supposed to be shira to the Ribbono Shel Olam. What we're doing is, throughout our day, everything that we do, we're supposed to be acknowledging the mastery of the Ribbono Shel Olam, and we're supposed to be using the world, using the Bria for the intent and the purposes that the Ribbono Shel Olam created it for. That's shira. Also, another reason why Tehillim is a vehicle for tefillah is because it's brought down that when we say the words of Tehillim, we are invoking David HaMelech to the extent that it's as if David HaMelech is being mispal for us. So when we invoke a kapitel, even if it's a kapitel that just addresses a particular occurrence in David HaMelech's lifetime, but we say the words of David HaMelech, we invoke that special relationship that David HaMelech had with the Ribbono Shel Olam, and that makes David HaMelech be mispal for us. So when we say the words of Tehillim, we are spurring on David HaMelech and the schus of David HaMelech to stand for us. Okay, now we go over here to Kapitel Chaf Aleph. This is a kapitel where I think I would go through some of the psukim and try to pull out from the psukim the concepts in Emunah and B'tachon, and those concepts in relationship with the Ribbono Shel Olam. Lamnatzeach Mizbah LeDavid. Hashem ba'ozecha yismach melech. Literally, David HaMelech says, Hashem ba'ozecha, with your strength, yismach melech. The melech will be sameach. The melech will rejoice. Now, the Rishonim say that this kapitel is either a reference to David HaMelech himself, and when he says Yismach Melech, he's referring to himself, or possibly both. It's a reference to the Melech Moshiach. Moshiach should come b'meher v'yameinu, and David HaMelech is saying over here that the Melech Moshiach will rejoice in the strength of Hashem. Ba'ozecha Yismach Melech. Now, there's two different ways to understand the words Ba'ozecha Yismach Melech. The Metzudas, and I always say the Metzudas David is the Pashat Pshat in Navi. The Metzudas says Ba'ozecha Beha'oiz Hanitan Mimecha LeMelech HaMashiach, with the strength that will be given from you, the Ribbono Shel Olam, to the Melech Mashiach. Hine Yismach Boi. The Melech will rejoice in that strength that you gave him. Okay, if you learn the pasuk that way, that's telling us that the Melech Mashiach will have strength given to him by the Ribbono Shel Olam, and he will rejoice in that strength. Now that's one madrega. That's a madrega where a person acknowledges and a person realizes that whatever abilities he has and whatever strengths he has only come from the Ribbono Shel Olam. So it's like my Rebbe always says over, the pasuk in Chumash says, Ki hu hanoisa lecha koyach la'asos chayil. The Rabbeinu Shalom is the one who gives you the strength to wage war. Or, like the famous Targum says over there, Ki hu hanita lecha eitza lemiknei nichsin. If you are very successful in business, you have to realize that the good trade that you made in the market is not because you're so smart, and it's not because you had such a great idea to buy Apple when Apple was trading at 50 cents a share. The Rabbeinu Shalom gave you the eitzah to buy Apple at 50 cents a share. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam shakol neh b'dvarim. What made you think to buy Apple when it was 50 cents? There was nothing about it that made sense. You had no idea that there was an iPhone coming. You had no idea there was an iPod coming. You had no idea there was an iPad coming. So what made you buy Apple at 50 cents? So yeah, you saw whatever you saw. But that eitzah came from the Rabbeinu Shalom. So that's the recognition that whatever smarts you have, whatever strengths you have, whatever abilities you have, they only come from the Rabbeinu Shalom. But you see, at that madrega, a person is still saying that the strengths are ultimately his strengths. What do I mean? I'm a smart guy. Now, why am I a smart guy? I'm a smart guy because the Rabbeinu Shalom made me smart. But the bottom line is I'm a smart guy. Then there's another madrega. And I think that madrega is Hashem ba'ozecha yismach melech. Hashem, in your strength, the melech is going to rejoice. The melech realizes that he doesn't have anything. I don't have any strength. There's nothing that's me. Everything is the strength of the Rabbeinu Shalom. It's not me at all. You know, we say in Oz Yasher, Ozi v'zimras ka Hashem. The strength, the praise of Hashem, Vayhi li lishua. Rashi learns that what that pasuk means is, what saved me? It's not Ozi, my strength, v'zimras ka, that it's the praise of Hashem, that it comes from Hashem. No, it's Ozi is a noun. Ozi is the strength of the Rabbeinu Shalom. Ozi v'zimras ka, the strength of the Rabbeinu Shalom, Vayehi li lishua, was a salvation for me. But it's not me. It's all and completely the Rabbeinu Shalom. I want you to imagine for a minute. I want you to think about it from Moshe Rabbeinu's perspective. Moshe Rabbeinu was tasked with the job of taking Klal Yisrael out of Mitzrayim. And as part of that job, he had to go to Paroi, and he had to warn Paroi about Makkos, and he had to, quote unquote, perform the Makkos. What does that mean? Moshe Rabbeinu made Makkos? Now, I mean, the pasuk does say, you know, we lay in the pasuk on Simchas Torah. The pasuk says, all the way at the end of the Torah Kedosha, V'zayis HaBracha, what does it say? It says, V'loikam navi oid b'Yisrael k'Moshe. There never arose in Klal Yisrael another prophet like Moshe. Asher Yedai Hashem, who knew Hashem, panim el panim, face to face. L'chol ha'osos, for all of the signs, for hamoivsim, and the wonders, Asher shlachai Hashem, that Hashem sent him, la'asos, to do them, be'eretz Mitzrayim, in the land of Mitzrayim, leparoi, to Pari, l'chol avadav, and to all his servants, l'chol artzai, and to all his land, l'chol hayad ha'chazaka, and for all of the powerful hand, l'chol ha'moira hagadol, and all of the awesome great wonders, Asher asa Moshe, that Moshe did, le'enei Kol Yisrael, into the eyes of Gans Klal Yisrael. Moshe Rabbeinu made the Makkos? It was Moshe Rabbeinu's Yad HaChazaka? wasn't Moshe Rabbeinu's Yad HaChazaka, it was the Rabbeinu Shalom's Yad HaChazaka. It was the Rabbeinu Shalom's hand that made the makas. Moshe Rabbeinu couldn't turn the waters of Mitzrayim to dam. The Rabbeinu Shalom turned the waters of Mitzrayim to dam. But Moshe Rabbeinu was the shliach who had to take the mateh, and well, actually by dam, Aaron HaKohen took the mateh because Moshe Rabbeinu couldn't strike the water because the water helped him when it hit him. So Aaron HaKohen had to actually hit the water. But Moshe Rabbeinu was the one who had to stand by the Yam Suf and hold the mateh, hold the staff over the Yam Suf, and that's when the Yam Suf split. But who split the Yam? Moshe Rabbeinu didn't split the Yam. Moshe Rabbeinu can't split a Yam. A person can't split a Yam. The Rabbeinu Shalom split the Yam. Moshe Rabbeinu had to do something. The Rabbeinu Shalom gave a kayach somehow in Moshe Rabbeinu that would happen when Moshe Rabbeinu held up the mateh and held it over the Yam. But Moshe Rabbeinu couldn't be misameach. He couldn't rejoice in his strength. Look at my strength. I could split a Yam. You can't split a Yam. If you would have gone over to a puddle an hour later and held the mateh out over the puddle wouldn't have split. Only the Rabbeinu Shalom could split a Yam. Hashem ba'ozecha yismach melech. The melech will be misameach in your strength. The melech will acknowledge and the melech will realize in every bone and in every cell of his body, whatever wonders the Melech HaMashiach will do, the Melech Mashiach will come and there'll be a Melchemes Gog uMagog and all of the things that we learn about in the Navi. But the Melech Mashiach is going to be Mesameach in the strength of the Rabbeinu Shalom. He's going to acknowledge with every fiber of his being that it's not him. It's the Rabbeinu Shalom, and it's only the Rabbeinu Shalom. It's not him and the Rabbeinu Shalom. It's not that the Rabbeinu Shalom gave him kayach. No, it's the Rabbeinu Shalom, and only the Rabbeinu Shalom. Now, I think that there's a very important lesson in that. Hashem, ba'azacha yismach melech. The melech will rejoice because he knows this lesson. What's pshat in that? The truth is that as long as a person thinks that his salvation hinges upon anything to do with himself or anything to do with anything else outside of the Rabbeinu Shalom, he can't really be misamech. He can't rejoice. I'll tell you what I mean. You know, look at all of the dictators that we're familiar with in our day and age. You know, you want to take a Saddam Hussein, you want to take a Muammar Gaddafi, you want to take the heads of the former Soviet Union, you want to take, it doesn't matter. You want to take Idi Amin, you want to take any of the tyrants and the dictators. You know, they rode on high for a long time. But how did they end? They didn't meet a good end. As long as you're the top dog, as long, you know, if it's Tully and you, eventually you meet up with an enemy that you can't beat. Eventually you meet up with a circumstance that you can't match up to. Eventually you get old. Eventually you get sloppy. You know, you're used to always being crafty and you're used to always being able to wiggle out of every situation. But one day your luck is going to run out. One day you're going to wake up and you're going to be a little bit too tired. You're not going to be so sharp. One day you're not going to pick up on something. So on that day you're going to lose. So you can never truly rejoice. You can never truly be happy. The Yismach Melech, the true Simcha, comes when you realize that the salvation is not dependent on you at all. When you realize that it's the Rabbeinu Shalom, and it's his strength, and I could rely on him, and he helped me, now I could rejoice. The Rabbeinu Shalom never wakes up tired. The Rabbeinu Shalom never has a hard day. The Rabbeinu Shalom never misses a cue. The Rebbeinu Shalom never forgets to turn around and see that somebody else is behind him. Nobody is ever going to be stronger than him. So Hashem, be'azecha, when the Melech realizes that all strength is yours, then Yismach Melech. And that's why the pasuk continues, Ubi Yeshuascha, and with your salvation, Ma Yogel Ma'od. How greatly does he rejoice? The Melech could rejoice because he realizes that the salvation was your salvation. Now, there's an important lesson in that for our day-to-day life. How many times does it happen that we're worried about something? How many times does it happen that we're faced with a challenge and we don't know what's going to be? We're not sure. How are we going to creep out of it? Somebody has a challenge in Parnasa. Somebody has a challenge with children. Somebody, chas v'chalila, has a challenge with health. And he's worried. He's worried. And then something happens. And he says, Baruch Hashem, it worked out. Somebody's all worried. He heard that there are going to be layoffs at his company. And he's all worried. I'm afraid. I'm going to go to work tomorrow morning, and I don't know what I'm going to hear. And he goes to work, and the whole day he's schwitzing, and the whole day he's zittering, and the rumors are going around. I heard human resources is on the way up. And then, human resources stopped at the 4th floor. We're on the 5th floor. He comes home, his wife says, what's happening? I don't know. Today nothing happened. Human resources was on the 4th floor today. And the next day he comes to work and he's zittering, and now human resources comes up to his floor. And now he's all worried. They're going into this office, they're going into that office, they're going into this office. And now suddenly they come into his office. And they come into his office, and the human resources person looks at him and says, Mr. Rosenberg, we're here from Human Resources. We have a very important topic we need to discuss with you. You have served the company so well for the last 10 years, and you've accomplished some wonderful things. And poor Mr. Rosenberg is sitting there and he's thinking, okay, the axe is about to fall. They're going to say, but now the company realizes that they have to go in another direction. And instead, the human resources person looks and says, we look back at your exemplary record of the past 10 years, and we say you served the company so well, we think it's time to promote you. We need you to lead a new group in the company, and we're promoting you. We're giving you a new position and greater responsibilities, and we're going to and we're going to give you a 1 second here. Where'd you go?
I'm unmuted.
Okay, I unmuted you. You looked like you wanted to say something.
Yeah, I want to ask you a question. I'll tell you why. It's very, actually, this is much what happened. At work now, we knew it was coming, but we didn't know it was going to come so fast and so hard. They basically laid off 8 therapists from our department. And they would have laid off 10, but the other 2 already resigned before they got laid off. And we knew it was coming. We didn't know what was going to happen in October. We thought it would be in February, and we didn't think it would be such a large number. So something like that, like when I speak with the other people at work, it's like it's really not our control. There's what to pray for, that, and not to pray for even necessarily that we keep this job, but that we have a job. But that's very easy to say that we know it's coming from Hashem. But when I look at the menuchas of how Hashem made me, and I like, this is my menuchas of who I am. Whatever characteristics you want to put to yourself. So yes, the menuchas come from Hashem, but it's hard to separate and say that you're really nothing, and all what I see as my personification is really not me. It's just Hashem. So it's just a body that has it.
We'll speak about that in a minute.
Okay.
We'll speak about that in a minute. So the guy is sitting, and now suddenly he got a promotion. So he comes home with a big smile, maybe flowers for his wife. And his wife says, "What happened?" And he says, "Human resources came and they gave me a promotion." So okay. He dodged the bullet. Baruch Hashem, it worked out. But sometimes the person thinks to himself, and he says, but I dodged the bullet this month. But these layoffs have been coming every 6 months. And we know corporate America, they start a new group and they close the group and then they start a new group and they shift people around and then they buy another company and then there's a merger and then there's more layoffs. So even though the guy dodged the bullet, so to speak, this time, he's still worried because he's still afraid what's going to happen next time. But that's why the pasuk says, Hashem ba'azacha yismach melech u'b'yeshuascha ma'yogel ma'oid. The melech is happy, and in the salvation of the Ribbono Shel Olam, he rejoices. The Ribbono Shel Olam just took care of you. You were worried, but it was worrying for nothing. The Ribbono Shel Olam took care of you. And if the Ribbono Shel Olam took care of you today, and the Ribbono Shel Olam took care of you last week, and the Ribbono Shel Olam took care of you last month, so what are you worrying about? The Ribbono Shel Olam will take care of you next month too. So rejoice. Be happy. What are you worrying about? And that's something we have to realize. We have to look. And when things work out, we have to acknowledge and we have to realize that they worked out because of the Ribbono Shel Olam they worked out. They didn't work out. The Ribbono Shel Olam worked them out. The Ribbono Shel Olam took care of you. And the Ribbono Shel Olam is always taking care of you. Now, does that mean that Human Resources is always going to say you got a promotion? There might be a time that Human Resources comes in and says the company's going in a different direction. But that's also the Ribbono Shel Olam taking care of you. That's also the Ribbono Shel Olam taking care of you. The same way he took care of you last time, he's taking care of you now too. Maybe it's not as comfortable. Maybe it's not the taking care of that you wanted at this moment, but the Ribbono Shel Olam is taking care of you. And then you could always be Ma Yogel Ma'oid. You know, one of the great people that we lost recently, the Maggid Shir from Yeshivas Tanal, Reb Shimon Mendel, Zechet Tzadik Levracha, they say that was one of his koiches, was he had tremendous menuchas hanefesh. He was tremendously relaxed. He was completely relaxed. He was in the Ribbono Shel Olam's hands. Even when he got a terrible prognosis, and he was a young man, he got a terrible prognosis, they say he accepted it with complete equanimity. If that's what the Ribbono Shel Olam wants, that's what the Ribbono Shel Olam wants. Whatever the Ribbono Shel Olam is doing, the Ribbono Shel Olam is taking care of me. So however the Ribbono Shel Olam wants it, however the Ribbono Shel Olam wants to take care of me, the Ribbono Shel Olam will take care of me. That's how you reach Yismach Melech and Mayogel Ma'oid. When you realize that it's Ba'azecha, that it's the Ribbono Shel Olam's strength, and when you realize it's Bishuasecha, that you didn't just dodge a bullet, you didn't just, well, Baruch Hashem, Human Resources wasn't gunning for me. No, it's the Ribbono Shel Olam's Yeshua. The Ribbono Shel Olam made the list that Human Resources is walking around with. It didn't just happen. The Ribbono Shel Olam is taking care of you. Then you can have the Mayogel Ma'oid. Now, even though it's not specifically on this, but I'm going to go off a moment on a tangent to answer what Mrs. Eisenman was asking about. And the truth is that this goes into really Chumash, into the last week's Parsha, and Parshas Bereshis. We know, and I've spoken about this before, we know that after Adam HaRishon ate from the Eitz Hadas, Adam HaRishon was given a klala. The klala was Bezas apecha toicha lechem. Now you're going to have to do a shtadlus, you're going to have to work for your parnasa, you're going to have to work for your food. The Chazal tell us that before they ate from the Eitz Hadas, you had bread growing from the trees. Parnasa wasn't the problem, everything was easy. After the Eitz Hadas, not only did it turn into what we have now, where people struggle for parnasa, but they had a klala that we don't have anymore. The klala, the curse that they had at that time, was that what you planted and what you got didn't necessarily match up. So you could plant chitim, you could plant wheat, and you could sow wheat, and you could reap barley. You could sow wheat, and you could get flax. Now, if you sow wheat and you get barley, you reap barley, at least you were in the grain business. So you planted something that you could harvest and grind into flour, and you reaped something that you could harvest and grind into flour. But if you sow wheat and you reap flax, you went from the food industry into the textile industry, because now you're going to make linen. And you never set out to be in the textile industry. Not only that, with all due respect to flaxseed oil, you can't eat linen. So you could eat some nice wheat bread, but what are you going to do with the linen? So now you're going to have to find somebody who needs a new suit, and you're going to have to trade him a suit for bread, because hopefully he planted linen, he planted flax, and he got wheat. Or it could be even worse than that. Who knows? You could plant, you never knew what you were going to get. Now that klala was taken away with the birth of Noach. When Noach came onto the scene, the pasuk says, this one will give us consolation. When Noach was born, that klala went away. And now when you planted wheat, you got wheat. When you planted barley, you got barley. It's a very interesting chazal. But what's behind it? What's at play over here? Why did the Rabbeinu Shalom make that curse initially? And why did the Rabbeinu Shalom change it later? So the truth is that it's a double-edged sword. You see, if you plant wheat and then you reap barley, you were given a very clear message. The Rabbeinu Shalom smacked you in the head, and the Rabbeinu Shalom told you, there's no such thing as koichi v'otzim yodi. You don't accomplish anything. If you were the one that was accomplishing, then you planted wheat, you should have reaped wheat. How did you end up with barley? Because there's no connection between what you do and what you're going to get. What the Rabbeinu Shalom did was, when the Rabbeinu Shalom gave the klala to Adam Rishon and said, now you're going to have to work for Parnasa, he knew that he's putting Adam into a very precarious position. Because now Adam is going to make his shtadlus for Parnasa, and then when he gets Parnasa, he's going to fall into the trap of koichi v'otzim yodi. He's going to say, why do I have money? Because I work so hard. Why am I rich? Because I'm the guy who's so smart, I come up with the best stock trades in the world. I'm the greatest salesman in town, so I make the biggest sales, and that's why I have so much money. That's koichi v'otzim yodi. A person is patting himself on the back. He's saying, it's my strength. It's my ga'inus that gives me what I have. So the Rabbeinu Shalom wanted to make sure that we don't fall into that trap. So the way he did it was, he showed us there's no connection between what you do and what you get. You're going to take apple seeds and put them into the ground, and guess what? You're not going to end up with apple trees. You're going to end up with a vineyard. You're going to take grape seeds and you're going to put them in the ground, and you're going to end up in the textile industry when you get flax and you have to make linen. So there's no connection between what you do and what you get. You have to do, because that's the klala that I gave you. The klala that I gave you is that you have to work. So you have to work. But what you get is not going to be a result of your work. What you get is what I'm going to give you. That's why the Rabbeinu Shalom gave us that curse. Now, why did the Rabbeinu Shalom take it away? If that served as a protection for us, that we couldn't fall into the terrible mistake of koichi v'otzim yodi, so then why did the Rabbeinu Shalom undo it with the birth of Noach? What favor was he doing us? He should have left it that way. That way we still couldn't make the mistake of koichi v'otzim yodi. Nowadays, a lot of people make that mistake. They get caught up and they think it's their hishtadlus that gives them their parnasa. Why didn't the Rabbeinu Shalom keep up that protection? The answer is because the Rabbeinu Shalom said that a person might not be able to live his whole life having it pushed in his face every single day that all the work that I do is worthless. I know my father, Olav Shalom, who was a survivor of Auschwitz, told me that one of the worst things that they did to him, and they did terrible things, but one of the worst things, not one of the worst, but one of the hardest things that they did was that outside of his barracks, there was a pile of heavy boulders. And every morning after roll call, you had to pick up one of those boulders, hold it over your head, and you had to walk with it to your work site. And when you got to the work site, you put it down. And then after doing a day's work, you had to pick it up and carry it back and put it back down by the barracks. For what? For what? Just to torture you. Just to wear you out and make you die sooner of starvation. So it was the fact that you knew that you're doing something completely worthless. If you're building a road, so at least, even if you're building a road for Nazis, Yamach Shemam, at least at the end of the day you accomplished something, at least you see something, at least you did something. Like this, I did nothing. So for a person to live every day, go out into the field and sit there and weed and plant and hoe and water and everything else, and then you see that what you do is worthless. What you do is mamish nothing. He said that the Ribbono Shel Olam wanted to cut mankind a break and at least give him the satisfaction that he works on something and he gets what he worked on. Now he has to work on himself and he has to remember that ultimately it's not him. So this is what Mrs. Eisenman is talking to. A person has, the Ribbono Shel Olam gave a person abilities. A person is able to take satisfaction in the work that he or she did. If you're a therapist and you're working with a patient and you help a patient, you could feel good at the end of the day. Baruch Hashem, I was able to help somebody. Baruch Hashem, I made a person's day easier. A speech therapist, you work with an older boy or an older girl, and you take care of their speech impediment, and you take away a stutter, and now they go ahead and they do a shidduch. So okay, you could feel nice. You know what? Baruch Hashem, I was able to help somebody. But at the same time, you have to know very clearly, it's not me ultimately that helped somebody. The Ribbono Shel Olam gave me that ability. The Ribbono Shel Olam made me able to do it. And like we said earlier in the shir, it's not only that the Ribbono Shel Olam made me able to do it. Even with the strengths and the abilities that the Ribbono Shel Olam gave me, I still wouldn't be able to do it. It's only because the Ribbono Shel Olam made it work. The Ribbono Shel Olam set up everything in a certain way, and the Ribbono Shel Olam allowed for it to work. So yes, you could take a certain amount of satisfaction in the work that you do and the accomplishments that you do, but ultimately, it's the Ribbono Shel Olam. Ultimately, there has to be a very clear understanding that it's not me. Ultimately, it's the Ribbono Shel Olam who does all. I can't do. I'll call bidei shamayim chutz miyiras shamayim. The only thing ultimately that we can do, that's an accomplishment that is us, that the Ribbono Shel Olam put it in our hands to do, is yiras shamayim. If we work on our yiras shamayim, that's something that we did, because the Ribbono Shel Olam gave us that ability, and the Ribbono Shel Olam doesn't work on our yiras shamayim. The Ribbono Shel Olam lets us work on our yiras shamayim. That's our job. Okay, I want to go a little bit further. Pasuk Gimel. David HaMelech says, Tavas liboi nasataloi. The desire, his heart's desire, the desires of the heart of the Melech, nasataloi, you granted him. Va'areshes sefasav, and I guess the word would be the utterances of his lips, that which he verbalized with his lips, bal monato sela, you did not withhold from him. So David HaMelech is praising the Ribbono Shel Olam, that the Ribbono Shel Olam gave the Melech the desires of his heart, tavas liboi. So there's two distinct things here. There's tavas liboi, the desires of the Melech's heart, and then there's vareshes sefasav, and then there are the things that the Melech actually asked for. And the David HaMelech addresses those two things in two different ways. The first one is Tavas Libai, the desires of his heart, Nosata Loi. You gave to him, past tense. Not you give to him, or you will give to him. You gave to him. You gave him the desires of his heart. And these are desires that he never asked for. He never verbalized them. They're not Areshes Sfasav. Then the Areshes Sfasav, the things that the Melech verbalized, this that he asked for, Bal Monata. You didn't withhold it from him. Doesn't say you gave it to him. Doesn't say you will give it to him. It says you didn't withhold it from him. What's going on over here? What are these two different things? And why are they treated differently? How are they treated differently? So I think that this is a very valuable lesson, again, in understanding our relationship with the Ribbono Shel Olam. Tavas libai nasataloi. You come to shul and you stand Shemona Esrei and you mispal to the Ribbono Shel Olam. The Ribbono Shel Olam knows Tavas libai. The Ribbono Shel Olam knows what's in your heart. Not only does the Ribbono Shel Olam know what's in your heart, the Ribbono Shel Olam knows what's in your heart better than you do. Sometimes you yourself are confused. You can't put your finger on exactly what it is that you're missing. Sometimes a person knows that he's not happy. He's not clicking on all cylinders. You know, he's not in a groove. When you're in a groove, I always like to use the analogy of baseball. I remember, I'm not a sports guy. I was never a sports guy. When I was a kid, I used to feel bad because I used to come to school and all the other kids would be talking about last night's game. I had no idea who played last night. And if you sat me down in front of a television and you asked me to watch a game, it was torture. I didn't know how anybody could actually sit there and watch a whole game. It didn't speak to me. But there was one thing that I enjoyed. I enjoyed the psychology of sports. I always found that there's deep psychology to sports. And I also enjoyed watching, when you watch a pitcher, when a pitcher is in his groove, he wants to get that ball out of his hand as soon as it gets into his hand. The catcher throws the ball back to him, he gets the ball, he wants to throw the next pitch. And when a pitcher is having a bad day, he's walking around the back of the mound and he's looking twice and thinking twice and calling off the signs and telling the catcher, no fastball, please, curveball. But when he's in a groove, he gets that ball, whack, next. Sometimes a person is just not in a groove and he doesn't know why. He's not sure. He can't put his finger on it. But the Ribbono Shel Olam knows. David HaMelech says, Tavas libai nosataloi. The Ribbono Shel Olam, he precedes you. He already preempted you. He knows what's in your heart. He knows what you need. And very often you find out that he already gave it to you. When you sit down and you think it through and you try to figure it out, you realize that the answer was always there. What does that mean, the answer was always there? How did it get there? Because the Ribbono Shel Olam gave it to you. You know, they say that sometimes the best thing, the thing that you need is right in front of your eyes, but you never saw it. So what does it mean it's right in front of your eyes and you never saw it? Why didn't you see it? And why was it there? Who put it there? I didn't put it there. I didn't even know that that's what I needed. So what's it doing there? I certainly didn't arrange that it should be there. The Ribbono Shel Olam arranged that it should be there. Because the Ribbono Shel Olam knows. And the Ribbono Shel Olam doesn't even need you to think it. And he doesn't need you to know it. And he doesn't need you to ask for it. You need it. You need to figure it out so that you see that the Ribbono Shel Olam gave it to you all along. You need sometimes to take the blinders off. It's the same thing. I always said this vart in the other direction. We're not so far removed from the Yamim Noraim. I always said by the Shlosh Esrei Midos, the first two of the Shlosh Esrei Midos, the 13 attributes of Hashem, are Hashem, Hashem. But the problem is they're both the same thing. They're both the same name of Hashem. They're both the Shem Havaya. So how are they two different Midos? So the Rambam tells us, Hashem is the midas harachamim, the midah of mercy that the Rebbeinu Shalom has, koidem sheyecheta, before somebody does an avera. The Rebbeinu Shalom knows that you're going to do the avera. The Rebbeinu Shalom knows that you have the ability to do that avera. The Rebbeinu Shalom knows that the madrega that you're on, if you're going to get that in the Zion, you're probably going to do that avera. So the Rebbeinu Shalom knows exactly what madrega you're on. And he has rachmanis on you. He has mercy on you. He keeps on letting you breathe. Even though he knows that you're going to do that avera, he keeps you alive. He gives you food. He gives you air. He gives you everything that you need. The second Hashem is the midah of rachamim, the attribute of mercy, after you did the avera. Now you did the avera, now the Rebbeinu Shalom has rachmanis on you, he has mercy on you even after you did the avera. But that mercy by the Rebbeinu Shalom is the same. To the Rebbeinu Shalom, it makes no difference before you did it, after you did it. He knows what madrega you're on. You don't hurt the Rebbeinu Shalom by doing the avera. You can't harm the Rebbeinu Shalom. So to the Rebbeinu Shalom, what's the difference before you did it, after you did it? He knew who you were before you did it. But you didn't know. You thought you were on a higher madrega. You thought that you weren't capable of doing that avera. So the Rebbeinu Shalom says, all right, you don't realize what madrega you're on. I can't expect from you that you should grow. But now you did the avera. Now you know what madrega you're on. Now you got to do tshuva. If you don't do tshuva, that's a bigger avera. Now I got to have more rachmanis on you. The point is that the Rebbeinu Shalom knows exactly what's going on in your heart. That's tavas libai. The desires of your heart, very often you realize nasataloi. He already gave it to you. That's the depth of your relationship as a yid with the Rebbeinu Shalom. If you're beteach b'Hashem, if you put your faith and put your trust in Hashem, the Rebbeinu Shalom knows what's in your heart. He knows what you want. He knows what you need, and he knows it better than you. And he already gave it to you. Va'areshes vasav, the utterances of his lips, bal manata sela. He won't withhold it from you. Sometimes the utterances of your lips are not in harmony with tavas liboy. Somebody's mispal, he thinks, you know what's going to make me happy? I need that position. You know what's going to make me happy? I need that promotion. Somebody tries so hard to get a promotion, and he or she goes and applies for the position and works for the position and promotes himself for the position and campaigns for the position. And then they don't get the position. And then very quickly they find out that it was the best thing that ever happened that they didn't get that position. Because the person who went into that position has nothing but sorrows. Not only that, sometimes a person realizes, now that I didn't get the position, and now that somebody else got the position and I'm watching him, I realize that wouldn't have given me what I needed. I thought that position was going to give me everything that I needed. Now I see it wouldn't have. So the areshes fasav, all those tefillas that you were mispal for, that you want that thing, they weren't in harmony with tavas libai. They weren't in harmony with what you really need. But what's the Rebbeinu Shalom to do? The pasuk says, "Bal manata sela." So I think, and this is my own, I could be off, but I think it sits in the pasuk. I think David HaMelech is telling you another level of our relationship with the Rebbeinu Shalom. And that is when you're mispal to the Rebbeinu Shalom and you get a no, don't think that pshat in that no is that the Rebbeinu Shalom didn't listen. Don't think that pshat in that no, I guess the Rebbeinu Shalom wasn't makabel my tefillas. I guess the Rebbeinu Shalom didn't listen to me when I davened. I guess the Rebbeinu Shalom rejected my tefillas. No. Areshes fasav bal manata. The Rebbeinu Shalom does not withhold the utterances of your lips. The Rebbeinu Shalom hears every one of those tefillas. Not only that, but the Rebbeinu Shalom will take those into consideration also. The Rebbeinu Shalom says, look, You're being mispal for that thing. So that is your best reflection of what's going on in your heart. You're davening for that thing because that's what you think you really need. The Rebbeinu Shalom is not going to reject that. Sometimes the Rebbeinu Shalom will even take it, and the Rebbeinu Shalom sometimes will try to give it to you in a way that works. Maybe the Rebbeinu Shalom will tweak it, and maybe the Rebbeinu Shalom will say, okay, if that's what you really want, so maybe we'll try to make it work until you reach the point that you realize that, you know what, I should have never asked for that. I know the Klausberger Rebbe used to say all the time, the Klausberger Rebbe used to say, when it came to giving brachas, he said he would give a bracha that the Rebbeinu Shalom should do what the Rebbeinu Shalom knows is right. He used the example of a shidduch. He said in a share once, he said many times people come to him and they say, Rebbe, I want a bracha for that shidduch. I want that shidduch. And the Klausberger Rebbe would say, they come for a bracha for that shidduch, and then 10 years later they come back and they say, either he should die or she should die, but I can't take it. Yeah, but that's the shidduch that you said you wanted. So he said, don't ask for, I want that. I want that position. I want that shidduch. I want that house. I want that. You don't know. You don't know. You want what the Rebbeinu Shalom knows. That's what you want. But I think those are the two madregas over here. There's the Tavas Libai, that's the Sataloi. The Areshes Fasav, when you daven to Hashem, Pal Manata. The Rebbeinu Shalom is not menea your tefillas. He doesn't block your tefillas. He doesn't withhold your tefillas. He hears every one of them. And he's going to try to help you. Try. The Rebbeinu Shalom doesn't try. The Rebbeinu Shalom will. The Rebbeinu Shalom will help you according to your tefillas. But remember, it's what he wants, because he's the one who knows your true Tavas Libai. It's not what you want. Okay? It's already long, so we're going to stop over here. Thank you so much for joining me for Limud of Torah. Everybody should, the Rebbeinu Shalom should send Yeshuas and Refuas to Gans Klal Yisrael. The Rebbeinu Shalom should help out everybody with everything that they need. Everyone should have only simchas, and we should be zeicher to see the Geula Shleima b'mehera v'yameinu.